This year in Modern Warfare, we've got plenty of brand new things to experience in-game, from the gunsmith to the camo system to new modes like cyber attack. But one thing that Call of Duty seriously expanded upon this year was Ground War. Ground War is a mode that has been left out of some of the more recent titles in the franchise, but man oh man did it make one triumphant return this year when it was announced that it would feature matches with player counts upwards of 100 by the time it was all said and done. And while 50 versus 50 is still on the horizon, as of now the 32v32 mode is one of the main attractions when it comes to multiplayer gameplay. So with Ground War being as massive as it is, and with it feeling so different than what we're used to seeing in Call of Duty, I figured today we would break down 9 tips specifically aimed at helping you improve in Ground War. Ideally, these tips will help you raise your overall map awareness, your KD in the mode, and just help you dominate matches more frequently. But before we jump into that, if you are new here, or if you are already watching the videos and you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. That way you can stay up to date with all of the latest Call of Duty news and intel. And of course, if you do enjoy the video, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And now let's break down how you can improve in Ground War. Now, these tips are going to range from simple gameplay adjustments you can make, to certain class options to focus on, and also to some map-specific things as well. But let's first start off with the verticality, because this is something that is ever so prominent in Ground War, as obviously you have the massive buildings on Dvorsky District, and on the other maps there's also various places you can get to in order to tower over the enemies. Basically, playing around the verticality is going to be key when it comes to, first off, just being able to stay alive and go on some streaks, and secondly, gain some map control. Now, height advantage is definitely a thing in this game at times. It's not a 100% surefire way to just never die, but it is a very big help when you are able to take the high ground, so when possible, utilizing it is going to help keep the enemies contained more easily. However, at the same time, there are no flags located above ground level, so if you are abusing the high ground, it's also going to be very easy to lose your flag positions, and then over time you'll just be pushed out due to that alone. The top of the skyscrapers on Dvorsk, the roofs and mountain on Quarry, and the rooftops on Kravchenko Farmland are all prime spots to find some action, and chances are if you're not up there, someone else is, meaning once again you can play off the verticality to find more targets to take out, or you can also capitalize off the flags being a bit more vulnerable if the enemies are abusing the high ground. So no matter if you're the one with the height advantage or not, paying attention to who controls those areas is going to help you in determining where to move and also when to do so. Moving on from that, let's talk about the tanks, because if you are someone who plays a lot of Ground War like me, you know just how annoying the tanks really are. Between their increased health, their unlimited ammo, and their ability to capture flags, the tanks can absolutely dominate the map if the right person is in control. However, the tanks do have one very effective and readily available counter, and that is the thermite. The thermite is absolutely the tank's kryptonite, so to speak, in this game, as 2 to 3 direct hits with it will take out a tank very quickly depending on its exact health. So if you have an entire squad all running thermite, or you simply choose to run shrapnel paired with the munitions box, that way you can have 2 or 3 of them to throw, you are going to have the tanks and their occupants in a full-blown panic every time they see you. Of course, you can also destroy the tanks by using launchers or with enough grenades, but without a doubt, the quickest way to do away with them on any map is to capitalize on the thermite being such an effective anti-tank tool at the moment. Plus, when paired with a launcher, this strat is especially effective. Next up, another major thing you can do to help improve your gameplay in Ground War is to take advantage of overkill. Overkill in the past honestly was not the most useful perk in the entire world. It's often been overshadowed by more useful and point-friendly perks, but this year, since there is no pick 10 or pick 13 or pick whatever system, overkill actually is much more viable. In the past, overkill wasn't good because your second primary couldn't really have a lot of attachments on it if you also wanted to have some perks and or equipment on your class too. But since you don't have to worry about building a class within the confines of a pick 10 system, both your primary and your secondary can have 5 attachments each, and in Ground War that is especially useful. The thing with Ground War is that the maps offer a very large variety of engagement opportunities. Each map has certain long lines of sight, which can be the home of both medium and long-range engagements, but around those flags and in certain buildings, there's also a lot of close quarters combat as well. So with Overkill, you can effectively build a setup that complements all of that. You can rock a sniper and an assault rifle, that way you can cover those extra long-range fights with, say, the AX-50, and then push the B&D flags with a kilo. Or you could run an AR and an SMG for a little more of a run-and-gun type of playstyle that is still effective long-range. Basically, with no real downside to having two fully stacked primary weapons, you have all the tools at your disposal to succeed in ground war thanks to Overkill. Now, speaking of building your class around ground war, let's talk about some stealth strats, because when there is 32 players on each team, the amount of UAVs and other kill streaks is just flat out absurd. And that's why using stealth perks is going to allow you to play a bit more aggressive, even when the enemies are calling in streak after streak. So here, Cold-Blooded and Ghost are going to be the main two perks that will have the biggest impact when it comes to avoiding that enemy kill streak spam. Cold-Blooded is going to make you undetectable by any AI targeting system, and also thermal sights as an added bonus. So AI-controlled streaks won't be hunting you down, meaning you're a bit more free to run outside, despite there potentially being a barrage of bullets raining down from above. And then with Ghost, this will make you invisible on the UAVs, the radar drones, and also the heartbeat sensors, so that constant UAV spam is not necessarily going to be picking you up either, once again allowing you to move around a little more without the enemies or their streaks knowing where you are, which ultimately should help you when you are trying to flank or when you're trying to get to a power position. Following that up, another pretty cool feature that Ground War offers that you can take advantage of is the ammo resupply stations. These can be found all across the maps in various locations, and these will end up resupplying your ammo, just your ammo, not your equipment, so just keep that in mind. But regardless, they can be extremely useful if you don't run Scavenger, or if your munitions box field upgrade is not charged or even active on your class. Next up, we've got to talk about the helicopters before we jump into the map-specific tips, as helicopters can be a pretty serious game changer too. Now, there are multiple helicopters that'll spawn throughout a match, but without a doubt, the most important times to use them is at the very start of the game or when you're trying to retake some map control. Out of the gate, getting to those center flags of B, C, and D is vital in gaining early map control and ideally setting the tone for the entire game. So upon the game starting, while you'll probably have plenty of random teammates capturing your spawn flag of either A or E, jumping into that helo and getting to the center of the map as soon as possible is going to result in any fashionably late enemies being pretty easy targets since you'll be awaiting their arrival. On the contrary, if your team is losing map control, using the helo to get up and over the enemies trapping you in the spawn is another very effective way to quickly try and turn the game around and mount a nice little comeback. Now, for the final 3 tips today, we're going to break down each of the maps individually and just talk about various routes and power positions and whatnot to ideally help you improve your general map knowledge. First off, let's take a look at Karst River Quarry. This map is probably the most CQC friendly, thanks to the B, C, and D flags being so close to one another, meaning behind those flags and going into each spawn is a lot of quote-unquote dead space, as it's just a lot of ground to cover with very little payoff for actually owning it. Typically on this map, the entire top border from E over to A is a place that I tend to avoid. That is of course the mountain, and it's really just a sniper and tank paradise. So oftentimes you're just met with long-range engagements where your opponent is already posted up ready and waiting for you. This also really is not considered a huge power position to me since there aren't any flags anywhere near it, meaning even if you control the mountain, even if you have say 3 tanks up there, you could still easily lose the game due to lack of flag control. Really, where you want to focus here is those 3 to 4 center buildings around B, C, and D. Obviously, you do want to control those flags first and foremost, but then also making sure you have coverage from the rooftops of the buildings looking into each spawn is going to result in the enemy team having a pretty difficult time just pushing out of their HQ and into the center of the map in general. Next up, we've got Dvorsky District, which, much like Quarry, has an absolute ton of dead space. There are plenty of buildings and little side alleys you can explore that have little to no impact on the gameplay because the spawns are just so deep on this map, and frankly, in comparison to the total size of the level in general, the flags really aren't all that spread out. Typically, I try to avoid the far edges of the map as normally there's not a ton of action there, But also, running straight up through the center streets is not the best idea either, as there are a million and one sniper spots and lines of sight that you can be taken out from, even if you do have control over 3 or 4 of the flags. My usual plan is to try and capture D or B based on what home flag you have, and then use these side alleys to try and get to C and control that. And from there, it's really just about trying to utilize the verticality and flank routes to keep the enemies at bay and out of the middle of the map. There is also a ton of rooftop engagements on this map, meaning snipers and assault rifles built for distance are going to excel here a lot. And also, if you are in the middle of a street, chances are there's a sniper looking at you from some rooftop, which is why I tend to try and move from alley to alley when possible. Then finally, we've got Kravchenko Farmland, which is easily the most linear of the 3 maps, as each spawn is relatively deep, while the 3 main flags are, for the most part, positioned in the very center of the map with 2 huge fields to the left and right respectively. This map essentially boils down to who controls the majority of the flags because it is so linear. Once you get E, D, and C, or A, B, and C, that enemy team is going to be stuck trying to work back up to mid-map, while your team is likely forming a barrier line in a sense, as players venture out more and more into the field and into the power positions of the rooftops and second stories of the middle houses. This is a map that, once again, has a ton of long-range lines of sight. So snipers are incredibly effective here, and if you do want to avoid those, you are going to need to stick to those center buildings as much as possible. But really, I feel like because this map is a bit more traditional in its left, right, and center lanes, even though those left and right lanes are so wide open, this map really does just boil down to holding more flags than the other team and controlling the spawns that way. Now, with all of that being said, those are 9 tips that ultimately should help you improve while playing Ground War here in Modern Warfare. If you found the video helpful or if you just simply enjoyed it, let me know by dropping a like rating on it, as it would be much appreciated. And of course, if you are new here and you want to stay up to date with everything going on in the world of Call of Duty, ranging from news to leaks to updates and pretty much everything else in between, feel free to subscribe with your post notifications turned on. That way you'll always know when I post a new video. As always, if you would like to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code IMMORTAL on all G Fuel, Control Freak, and Respawn products. You can find all of those links listed down in the description below, and once again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.